Welcome to Virtual Gardening 101. This is a place where we dig into the digital soil and reap real results. I want to thank you for joining me for another interesting feature. In this feature, I'm going to be talking about weeds because it is one of the most common problems that affect us as gardeners. I'll be giving a simple definition, highlighting a few uses of weeds. I'll be explaining what happens when we overuse chemicals to control them, and also share some methods that we can use to navigate the challenge or challenges that come with them within the garden environment. Now, a weed is described as a plant that is out of place. Simple terms, an unwanted plant. It's often regarded as a pest because it interferes with crop or livestock production. Weeds can be considered to be any vegetation that comes up in a garden or field that the grower did not plant, whether or not it is causing a problem. Now, the presence of weeds may not always be harmful or does not automatically warrant their immediate removal because they perform vital ecosystem services such as providing protection for, and in some instances, degraded soil, creating a habitat for beneficial organisms that could help to control insect pests. Some weeds also have medicinal properties, and here in Jamaica, we tend to use a lot of herbs for various ailments, and some of these herbs fall in the category of weeds. A lot of our farmers here in Jamaica use the slash and burn method to prepare their land in the initial stage. Especially if the area is forested, they would cut the vegetation, they would allow it to dry, and then they will burn it. Now, this is not a good method to prepare land, not just for cultivation, but for building houses or establishing any other forms of development such as roads. As a person who have studied environmental science, I say no to this kind of practice because of the impact that it has on the environment. After these parcels of land would have been in cultivation for a period of time, the crops would have been harvested and, say the next planting season, farmers would have resorted to the usage of sprays or herbicides in order to clear weeds or other plants that would come up, because it is, for one, faster, and also it is less labor intensive. Over time, the extensive use of herbicides exert pressure on weed populations. Initially, they kill susceptible weeds and leave behind those with genetic variations that confer resistance to the herbicide's mode of action. Those resistant weeds then reproduce and pass on their resistant traits to the future generations. What you have over time is a weed population that develops resistance to the herbicides. This phenomena is called herbicide-resistant weed biotypes, and this is simply caused by the repeated use of the same herbicide or the reliance of herbicide with the same mode of action. As a result, the herbicide-resistant weed population become more prevalent and widespread. I think this is what has happened where I'm living, because some of the weed species I've seen weren't around prior to the usage of herbicides. And based on my observation, these new weed species are more prolific, and the chemicals seem to have little or no effect on them. And this is one of the reasons why I've decided to do this feature, and I will be doing another series in which I will be looking at some of these weed species, so you can look out for that feature very soon. Here are a few tips that you can use to better manage weed problem within your garden space. One, you can use mulch, and mulching involves the usage of organic materials such as dried grass to cover the surface of the soil. And this dry farming practice is used a lot in the southern section of Jamaica, where the farmers use guinea grass to cover the surface of the soil in order to keep the moisture, because they tend to use drip irrigation method to water their plants, and the water is very scarce on that side, so they have to use a method that will allow their plants to survive during the long dry periods that we have been experiencing in recent times, even due to climate change. And so, apart from retaining moisture in the soil, once the soil surface is covered, then it is going to reduce the surface area that the weeds will have to grow. And so that's an added benefit that comes with mulching, among so many other benefits that I'm not able to get into at the moment. Within your home space, you can also do some amount of mulching, especially if you have a lawn. You can use the grass cuttings as long as they are free from weed seeds. So you have to make sure that your lawn is free from weeds, and it is a time consuming activity to have your lawn well manicured, but you'll have the benefit of the grass to use as mulch. So you can remove the weeds before they generate seeds, or just at the point where the seeds are coming into maturity and to be released. So when you cut your lawn, you'll have that dry grass to use as mulch. Second point I like to make: if you're growing crops on a large scale, you can use protected agriculture, and it's just a technical term for greenhouse farming. I know that this is a very costly venture, and so only persons with money can really take on this. But just know that this is also a method that is available to help to control weeds, because all your crops will be grown in a controlled space. And in conjunction with the greenhouse farming, is the hydroponics, the art of growing plants in a soilless medium. So the weeds need a substrate in order to grow, and if they don't have any, then you're not going to have any weed problem. You can use a weed whacker to cut grass on a regular basis instead of resorting to the sprays. And in the feature that will be coming up, I will be highlighting problem that we have with the usage of chemicals, because we were having a problem, with maintaining a particular space. And so don't see the usage of chemical as your first resort. You need to explore all the opportunities. Let the usage of chemicals be the last resort. As an environmentalist, I will definitely advocate for the reduction in the use of chemicals because of the impacts that they have on our environment. And yes, if you have to use chemicals, then you need to rotate them, because earlier I made mention of you know, weeds becoming resistant to herbicides mode of action. And the same thing happens when you're trying to get rid of certain kinds of insect. If you constantly use one particular chemical, then over time the pest is going to develop resistance to it. The same thing applies for the plants as well. And there's still another method that you can use. You just need to invest some time and physically remove the weeds. Use your machete, put on your broad hat, and you go out if the time is too hot, and you spend a few hours and get rid of the weeds, because at the end of the day you will save money, and it will be some physical activity, especially for the older persons who are retired and need some kind of physical activity to keep them moving. So you can turn on some music, and before you know it, the weed problem that you thought was a big mountain, you would have gotten over it. So don't see the weeds as a problem. You just need to know how to go around them, and you can enjoy your gardening experience. I hope that these tips would have been helpful. I want to thank you for taking the time out to come over to Virtual Gardening 101, the place where we dig into the digital soil and reap real results. This is a new channel, and I'd really appreciate it if you could give it some support by, first of all, liking the content and sharing it with somebody, because the aim is to bring about awareness. I welcome your feedback in the comment section, and you could give the channel a further boost by subscribing as well. Once again, I want to say thank you for stopping by, and I'll catch you in another one.